Thank you. Good evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I will make my introduction naturally in English so that Peter Zumthor can understand what I say about him. And to begin, how is it possible to introduce a monument such as Peter Zumthor? Of course, all of you are here because you know a lot about his work. So what can I say about his work, which I could add to what you know? Of course, you know that Peter Zumthor is the Pritzker Prize of 2009, and he's one of the world's most famous architects in the world. Since his first published work in 1985, Peter Zumthor has played with shapes of such a powerful evidence that it was so easy to categorize him in some kind of a minimalist family of architects, bringing all the details and resolutions to such a precision that nothing seems to be in contradiction with these results. That sort of acceptance is quite much dangerous, because Peter Zumthor's projects have nothing to do with some kind of a monolithic attitude. On the opposite, his attitude is to throw himself into the confrontation, even the contradiction of his practice. And I remember a good friend of mine coming back from the terms of Valls and completely excited to describe me all the complexity in the use of materials, natural light, in many different scales of uses and implementations. So, if Peter Zumthor seems to have such a high discipline in the perfection of his practice, it is always because he wants to get up to the point of what is to be said and understood on the place. Another strong memory of mine is one of his latest work, the Columba Museum. All the precision of his architecture is meant to let us concentrate on the museography on the one hand, and the relations of the internal world with the city around on the other. Peter Zumthor's work are never simple. They have always a high level of complexity. And tonight, he is planning to share with us one of the latest challenges that are set for our contemporary society, which is, what do we do with our own identity? So please give a great welcome to this fantastic architect, Peter Zumthor.
Thank you. Good to be here, thank you. Tonight I'm going to talk about work. We started 7 or 8 years ago. I should go away from these guys, huh? Okay. And it could look that will take another 7 years or another 14 years to finish it. You will see, it's not easy. Why am I doing this? Why do I work on this Mei-Fabriek project in Holland, Leiden? There's one interest. Let me give you an example. 8-10 years ago with the students, we went to the outskirts of Milano, studying all these amazing factories which have in the periphery of Milano have been constructed in the last 700 years. Why did we do this? Because I personally like a lot the structure of engineered buildings, where you have the feeling there is no architect. It's only a civil engineer who has made a very logical kind of structure. And I always admired these buildings because I think they have a lot of strength. What I see there and what we studied with the students, I call the anatomy, like the bones of a body. There's the skin and there are the beautiful eyes and everything, but there's also anatomy, which comes from the inside. And this is what I like about architecture, not only industrial architecture, that there's an idea of the structure inside. The structure is not something superfluous which afterwards gets clad or covered. Okay, this is one interest. So when the telephone call come from Jo Kuhnen, there would be a small competition in this Mei-Fabriek complex. We thought, yeah, maybe we could deal with this kind of anatomies, industrial anatomies. Let's go and have a look. So I went there, and going for the competition, the architects were invited to look at the site, and this was sort of a real disappointment, because it was raining, and they put me in the Holiday Inn hotel. So I said, I will never come back to this place in my whole life. If somebody puts me in a Holiday Inn hotel, he has no idea who. So, please. So sort of against my grain, I went on to the tour to look at the building complex the next morning, together with my colleagues. And this, I have to admit, was more interesting. So my negative attitude sort of dissolved. I became more interested and positive about what I saw. They gave us a tour of about 2 hours, going through all the buildings you will see in a moment. I'm in the middle. Okay. They gave us this tour. We walked through all these 7, 8, 9 different buildings of the production process. And then something strange happened. This factory went out of business in the 80s. And at the end of the tour, in a building called Mei-Fabriek in German, I don't know how to pronounce this in Dutch, but you understand, Mei-Fabriek. So at the end, on the top floor, where our tour ended, my Spanish assistant said, look over there in the rubble, in the waste, there is something like a calendar with a beautiful image on it. So he went over and came back with this calendar. And on this calendar, this was very impressive. You could see that the workers had crossed out every day, and all of a sudden it stopped. The last day of work. And afterwards, the factory went out of business. And then we looked at the image, and the image was from Switzerland, from the mountains, and it said, the village of Pfalz. So from then on, everybody knew I was going to win the competition. So here you see what I'm going to talk about here. We start with the history. The city of Leiden. Around the city of Leiden we have this defense ring, the fortification, with the bastions. And on the bastions, this is great, the windmills. For me as a Swiss, this is great that on the bastion you have windmills. So it's not only about war and defense. So we are talking now about, is it this one, I guess? We'll be talking about this one. So we have the fortification about the city, you know this, in the bastion. And there came the 19th century. Industrialization, something positive, as you can see. All the smoke, and so this was a positive sign of a new area to come. And then they started to build the Mei-Fabriek, the flower factory. First building. The grain, as you can see, was brought in on the water and then lifted up to the grain elevator and then produced. And this is, I think, something incredibly fascinating. I studied other mills because these mills, as you know, they work with gravity. So you bring the stuff up, and in the production it goes down, and at the end you have the flour. And this is also why that in all the old mill buildings you have a lot, if it's not storage, if it's process, you have a lot of wooden floors. And in the wooden floors they are full of holes. This is because they always changed the pipes, you know. They sort of mixed, I don't understand it, but you can see it, they mixed different grains, and as they were produced, the flour was made from this and this and this and this was always changed. Fascinating flour factories. So it gets bigger. On the whole belt, other factories start. I think this is the beginning of an anchor factory, where they made these huge iron anchors for ships. Yeah, this is the anchor factory here. This is the Mei-Fabriek in the back. Beautiful. Now you see the grain elevators going up and so on. Now, some architect went to Italy, and then he came back, studied a little bit of Renaissance architecture here. So this is really a good one. But still the same thing. This is the anchor park, the anchor factory. Still getting bigger. So there must have been a good business here. It's interesting that the buildings come and buildings go. Afterwards I'll show you a sequence, and you can see this was must have been beautiful in these times. You needed something, and you built it. Huh? You don't ask a committee and wait 7.5 years until they give you a permission. You need something, then you do it. And if you have to do a new building, you take our old one away, maybe if you don't use it anymore. Beautiful times. But on the other hand, I have to say it's too bad that only a little bit of this is left. So this is the Mei-Fabriek. And over there, this is a cotton factory, Katoen factory, Baumwollspinnerei in my language. The Mei-Fabriek, huge complex in the back, almost as we have it now. The anchor factory. Monumental. So, I mean, if you look at these now, or if you look at this now, this is very beautiful. But of course, if you worked there or lived there as a worker, maybe it was not so beautiful. This we have to remember, I'm remembering. So this is the complex, more or less, as we have it now, more or less. This is Mei-Fabriek here. This is cotton, this is anchor, and this is the workers. So this is impressive, the workers, they lived right around the industrial complex. See, this is the workers and the factories, and this is the Mei-Fabriek. And this is, I think, a very important moment. Anchor factory gone, and so you can see the city starts to say we don't need industry anymore, it's in the wrong place. Let's do all a park. Let's re-establish a green belt around the city and go away with these terrible factory things. And then also they took away all the housing of the workers. And this, I think we'll see afterwards, this is still a problem today, because the new things they built there, I think, are of low quality. There is no infrastructure. There's not much here happening. So this now has become maybe the most simple or the worst part of the city in a way, because there's no public life. And I think this has to do with this large destruction and an absence of, I'm sorry to say, intelligent planning. At least that's how it looks to me. Okay, so you see the cotton one is still there and the Mei-Fabriek stays. Mei-Fabriek still working, but everything else already gone. This image, when I look at this image, I can hear the sound of the factory. Can you hear it too? It must have been an amazing sound of these huge, huge volumes working. Mei-Fabriek there. Industrial heritage out of use. So why did this not get destructed? There was a Dutch guy who went to New York in the 80s, and there he saw some lofts. And he saw that the Americans were changing lofts into apartments. Then he went home to Holland and said, hey guys, I'm going to buy this Mei-Fabriek, and I'm going to make lofts out of it. So this is in the 80s, and he was the only one. He had to fight for this, because the city also wanted to take this down. In the meantime, I have to tell you, this guy is my client. He is sitting here somewhere. And he owns this now. And this was hard for him to maintain it, but now times have changed. Now this is industrial heritage. And if we want to change a little bit, we have to ask a lot of people whether we can do it or not. But we agree it is industrial heritage, but it's funny, somebody is doing something against authorities, and now authorities have come along. So we're looking at this Mei-Fabriek now out of use. Impressive. It's a monument, it's monumental, but it is closed. Brick, beautiful. This, for instance, these beautiful facades, as you can see, they're not structural brickwork, as you can see. This is I think this is amazing. This is sort of like a box with a very delicate membrane of glass and bricks hanging from the inside. Nice construction. And this is the inside of the same building. And there you can see it's hanging from the steel structure, the whole. So if you start to study these kind of anatomies of the buildings, you can discover how they were made for their function, sometimes delicate, sometimes thick and heavy. The silos, underneath the silos with the funnels, like cathedrals. It's a little bit, if you walk through it, it always reminds me of the Cathedral of Cordoba in Spain, if you ever have been there, where you have different patterns into each other, the Gothic one and the Moorish one. So this is the building with, which had to carry heavy loads, a mail magazine, you can tell with the mushroom columns and the slabs. And this is this fantastic double helix, where two things for the flour they use this, or for the grain. Yeah. And this is the building my client saw in New York. And this is a loft in New York, so this is the source of inspiration. So there was so years later, the competition asked for a concept of preservation. And here's the concept. This is when they built these fine steel structures. This one. So I have to tell you, I worked in my canton in Switzerland. I worked for 10 years for the Denkmalpflege, for the Department for Monuments and Sites, for the preservation. So when I looked at this, in the competition, I looked at this and said, this is beautiful. But if I have to redo this with our new laws of insulation and not making double and triple windows and so on, the beauty will be gone completely. And I will not be able to reconstruct this. I could only keep it, but I cannot keep it. So from there came the idea of the competition. Let's get rid of all the facades. Because facades are too difficult to maintain, or it's actually not possible. Let's get rid of all the facades, but keep the structure. So we proposed to the people in Holland in the competition that we would keep all the anatomies of all buildings entirely. We would not take anything away, but we would make new facades for every building. So we built these models of the structures. You see, and then we could see, if you take away the facades, you can see it's a collection of industrial building types. Steel frame, mushroom column slab. This one. Please note how the columns get thinner to the top. And imagine the tons of flour the building had to carry. This is all in our model. See, this is not the reality. This is our competition entry. We made these models to photograph them, to study them. This, as you can see, is a concrete frame building, one of the younger ones. Or this here is the oldest one, Kessel House. This is the only shell building, conventional shell building with puncture windows and a vault. All the other ones are skeletons and more modern typologies. And then if you look at the plans, I think this is amazing. I mean, I would be proud, if I could have done a building with such a floor plan ever. Beautiful. You can see an incredible power of composition, but that it doesn't come from competition, as we know. These are the batteries for the different grains of the silos here, coming in different phases, and so on. This is the on-ground floor, where you get this forest of columns, and there's the water, you'll see later. So we are quite excited about these things here. And you see the steel frame buildings, very subtle. Sections. This is one of my big complaints in my office, that my young collaborators, they always do plans, and they never do sections. And every second day I say, please do a section for me, because I think sections are beautiful. You can see here. And you know what? If I look at things like this, I have a feeling as an architect, I don't have to do much. Maybe my task here is to be clever enough not to destroy and add just a few things to keep the strength of what we see. You'll see later whether we succeed in this. Yeah. Beautiful sections. And this is how it looks. So you take away the facades, and then you start to see this collection of building types here. And then we start to add new facades. And the new facades should highlight, however they are being made, they should highlight, of course, the anatomies of the buildings. So this is what we did. You see, we didn't do any facades, we just worked with light, and it's more like a promise. The work is not yet done, but the promise is, let's do a new facades. And then we also needed an idea for the silos, because the silos happen to be completely closed, of course. So we said, the silos, they will get a perforation. Okay, for some reason this was good enough. So surprisingly, we did win this competition. And also the people from the monument department in Holland, they shared my idea that it could be worthwhile to maintain all the physicality inside and make new facades. Urban analysis. Clear, the easiest thing, the Mei-Fabriek is a monument. Like the church and other things, the Mei-Fabriek is a monument in the city, in the townscape of Leiden. Easy to see. It always reminds me of Palazzo in Italy. So sometimes if you come to an Italian town, outside you have the fortezza or il castello. This is how it looks. All the important monuments in the city, we are here. Let me go back for a moment. So if you go there now, from the distance, it's a monument. If you come close, you cannot get in. It's fenced in, it's completely locked up, it's not part of the city. There's a fence, there are some open fields, there's parking. So this whole thing is not at all, of course, integrated to the city. So it's important to understand, for us to understand what we could do. It's important to see how it developed. As I already told you, 1 building, 2 buildings, 3 buildings. So what you don't see, I already told you what you don't see, that sometimes they took away former buildings, put in new ones. So I think we said we can learn from this, or we keep with this. We can take away, we can keep, and we can also add. Let's see. 78, and this is the actual situation. Now. So this is a building not very interesting. There's a fence going there. This is a very cheap building, also not very interesting. And here, very nice, 2 buildings of the administration. This is a bicycle shed, and this is the administration, which is not the industrial type of building. You see them, this is this, and there, this is also a nondescript student house, I think. There are some shops there, there's parking, and these are quite nice. This is the bicycle shed, and here we have the piece for the administration. So this was a little bit a heavy one now we proposed for the monument authorities in Holland. This is easy. We said we have to connect the complex in these 3 directions to the city. Open it up. This is the easy part. Maintaining, do you see it now? Okay. So this, we said this building has to go. It's not an industrial type building. Yeah, no problem. This building, same thing, has to go. But this was a bit hard to swallow for the people from the monument department, because this is administration and the bicycle shop is actually part of the complex. But our argument said we want to keep the industrial buildings, but we need some space to create a dialogue between old and new, to make this connection to the city and to the people. And also on the economic level, you need some new buildings to make it feasible economically, the whole complex. This belongs to the task here too. So yellow goes away. Sorry about that. This is all on paper. They are still standing. Maybe after this lecture, somebody will go and say, we should keep this. This is not a good idea, huh? So, okay, what is left here now is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 old industrial buildings, industrial typologies, all different in this kind of shape. And this now would become our area of intervention to create new urban energy and connect the whole place to the city, bring new life to this monument. So as you know, we do have a strategy for these guys, and we know what we keep there, but we need, of course, more. Yeah. So blue is heavy concrete buildings in the model. This means lightweight steel buildings. Introducing public infrastructure. Now, what I'm showing you, this looks like we would have made a map of this in a couple of months, but this, I have to tell you, is the result of 7 years of work. Because we have 2 new parks here. They are designed, Anchor Park, Khartoum Park. You know why they have these names. They are called like this now, but at the moment they are completely nondescript green areas. And after a while now, we got the city of Leiden enthusiastic about the idea to create 2 new public parks here. And they did give the commission, and Vogt Landscape Architects from Zurich, they made design with us for these 2 parks to make this kind of connection. You know what was the biggest, I don't know, maybe I should tell you. I think this is interesting. We always went to talk to the city authorities of Leiden, my client, his project manager, me, and a couple of other people. And for a long time, the city authorities of Leiden, they didn't really trust us, because they thought there are always only 3 or 4 people coming. In a project like this, usually there are 20 consultants on the table. There must be something strange. So it took quite some time that they developed the trust, because maybe they thought this is a person who says he wants to restore the old thing, and as soon as he has the permission, he does all the new things and says, now I'm out of business, I'm not doing the old thing. And now we are in a point where they believe my client, and I guess they also believe me, and that's why we can do now things like that we can do these public parks together in a joint venture, hopefully. Oh, let me see, I'm sorry. Back. I'm not very good at this. Yeah, okay. The city has this kind of projects. See, this is the city project. The city says, what we want to do, we would like to have a continuous park all around the city on a fortification. I'm not so sure whether I like this project myself, but I understand it. Because as you know, nowadays people, if you ask planners and people, I think everybody wants always to connect. And sometimes I think it would be much better not to connect, to keep single identities and so on. But you can see there are large parts where you have the feeling they will never make it to connect. It just will stay an idea. But anyway, here we have a long connection. We need a new bridge there. And you see the idea. Okay. So it makes part of the city kind of idea for Leiden. And then the next thing, we introduce this new canal, and this canal, this is already water here, and this here. We create a Mei-Fabriek harbor, and from here we want to go by boat to the city, or from the city by boat to the Mei-Fabriek harbor. So this is new, and this is new, and this is new. So we say, there's the railway station. Could be beautiful when you could go from the railway station by boat to the Mei-Fabriek. Okay, so my client put these ideas of this, what we could do We could have a Mei-Fabriek boat. I think there was an interview in the newspaper, and the taxi boat people, they already are interested. So they called him right away and said, yeah, we want to talk to you. So it's maybe a realistic idea to come up with a connection that you can visit our area by boat. Bridges. I mean, maybe you share this. I like bridges. I think bridges are great. It doesn't actually really matter how they are designed. It's good if they're nicely designed, but much more exciting is always the moment to have a bridge at all. So bridge, new bridge, new bridge. So you see we're preparing our ground here for this connection. Cars. Cars come and go into there, and there will be an underground garage here and another one here in two different phases, so that the whole area here will be a pedestrian area. And then you will see, of course, for some of the new buildings, it's necessary to offer a direct access to the walk-in garage, this you know. Pedestrian connections, water connections, motorized connections, bridges. Introducing new buildings, curating public spaces. Maybe this is the most difficult. This is what we have so far. We have the bridges, we have the water, we have this water, we opened this. So we have this. Now we put the new buildings here. This. Since these industrial buildings have been designed to carry heavy loads, flour, they can carry a lot more. So that's why on the and here, this is just symbolized in the model, we can add floors. We call them crowns. So we know on all the old types, we have the possibility to add things. Not on the steel buildings, they're limited, but all the other ones are so well, they can carry much more. So the crowns. Now, the first thing which comes into existence is Mei-Fabriek Square. We put the building here, and here, for the first time, we jump over. And so, do you know, this is fortification line, and this is city line. So, I have to confess that this is always discussed again in my office, whether this is correct. A new brilliant architect comes to my office again and says, here they should all be like there. Why is this open? And then it takes another 2 days of discussion, and then we think again. Now we have a more open kind of system which comes from there, an open setting, and not a classicistic kind of 19th century city block. So here we jump over the water, and here we create this, and we create this. We call this now the Mei-Fabriek passage, going through these buildings, going down and going over to the park. So let me see. Okay, here you see this in the model. So, to me, I think this is a great potential. I would like to do a building on the water, across from these other two buildings, also on the water, and so on, you see. So this is the next. With these two buildings, we make the transition over to the residential area, because we don't want to be monumental all the way to there, but we would like to be friendly and nice with these people and with these people around, but still it should be part of the whole composition here. So this we call Aspen Square, because I like the name, the way it sounds. So we looked at the trees, the aspen trees, and they don't look so nice. So we have a nice name, and die Zitterpappel is not yet so nice, but maybe we find good species of aspens. In German, Zitterpappel. Espe, or Espe, okay. Okay, Mei-Fabriek Square, Aspen Square. Completely different kind of situation. So this should be more industrial, and this should be a bit more domestic. You see this in a moment. So the idea behind this would be that I can create a series of interlocking, distinct urban spaces. Let's see. That's what we have now. Now comes the use. This is like social engineering. We have to see what do we want to do. We say the Mei-Fabriek is basically a residential area. There's no big dominance of offices. Basically, it's residential. So it's living, it starts with living. We want to have students, young professionals, singles, families, and elderly couples. And then we want to have ateliers, studios, and offices, secondarily, for creative professionals. We want to have a communal building for some public venues we can use for our hotel and for the guests and so on. And then we think we should have a series of magnets, buildings which are of a bigger interest than local. So this is urban elements attracting visitors from the outside, creating urban interest and an urban sense of place. In our case, we think, you'll see this right away, this should be a hotel. It should be a very special fitness and spa. My client is running one of these things very successfully in another place. We would like to do a Mei-Fabriek house of design. And then we would like to Anchor Park, as you know, Cartoon Park, and the Mei-Fabriek Harbor and Cafe. So these things here, they come out of a social engineering and so on process of talking of several years that we now more or less think this is the direction we want to go. We know a lot, but for me as a planner and architect and for everybody else, it's very important to stay flexible, because this can always change. We should be. So what we did, what I'm not going to show you, but I'm telling you in words, we know the potential of every old building by now, because many of these functions, we made projects, and we made student projects for this house and for the other house. We tried to do, where should we do the hotel? And so we know the potential of the structures. And that leads us to this kind of mix we want to do. This is the upper floors of the buildings. I think you can read it. So this is more about living and residential working, meaning ateliers and studios. It goes, here we have apartments where we think you can have, if the son of 18 or 20 wants to move out of the apartment, it can be in the first, on the ground floor, or you can take of your older parents, take care of your parents down there. So this is a part which is not so much architectural, but for me this is incredibly important, that from the inside out, I would know with each building how this would work. So these are the main dedications. You see the yellow ones, these things are the buildings we think are of city interest. And this is more living and so on. Now, maybe even more important, to create public space. This is ground floor. So in these buildings we just saw before, the ground floor is even more important, because on the ground floor we need an even distribution of good functions and entrances and so on to really have this, how would you call this mixture of many things which make a place livable. So you can see what we have here, and I'll show you. Okay. Very important, the arrows. Every arrow is an entrance. Now you can imagine how life takes place. You can see yellow, here, yellow cafes and restaurants. The Harbor Cafe. There is Café Trieste. Do you know Café Trieste? No? Okay, you will, it's good that you don't know. You will know soon. Because this is our idea, to make a Café Trieste delicatessen there. Harbor Cafe and the Student Cafe Bakery in the Student Tower. There. Then we have, very important, these blue things. They create addresses because these are the lobbies to the buildings. The entrances where you put your bicycle, or maybe in this one, could be that there would be James. James, here, would be in the lobby, and you can ask him for airport transfers. He would water your plants, he would walk your dog, and so on. This would be, you can imagine what kind of people could live in the greenhouse apartments there, up there. So they would need James at the entrance. Of course, in the student tower, something else in the entrance. There's no James there. So lobby. Red is retail. So retail, the shops, this is not a big shopping thing, this is retail for every day. You need somebody, you need a barber, a hairdresser, and so on. You can imagine what we need for newspapers and so on. This there, in the workshop building, we have the bookstore. In many of these things here, we have already people who want to do this. Not in all of them, but in many there is an interest. And this takes years to collect these interests and so on. This is the exit from the underground parking garage, which is there in this covered area with the forest of columns. Could you please go on? Okay. So first we look at the redeveloped buildings. I mean, I'm sorry, maybe I'm boring you completely with these kind of things, but that's life, huh? Okay, first ideas about the Silo-Gewölbe with Mei-Fabriek Hotel. Here we go. Reception. So what you're looking at here are images of our models. So we do no computer renderings. We build big models, as big as possible, put them in the daylight or in the artificial light, and then make photos of this. And there's a rule, not more than 20% Photoshop. Huh? Otherwise, the things start to look dead. So this Edward Hopper composition, this is actually this is how it looks there, and this is the lobby of the hotel. Also this. And can you see somehow it seems to be so easy to do this? Everything is already there. Most of the things we are looking at is historic. And of course, it's much more beautiful than our model, huh? So in the mail magazine, there is this thing here. You know what I mean, huh? Not so bad. Overlooking the city. And this is on top. For the fitness and spa, we need some huge spaces with a big span. And the whole factory doesn't offer any big spans because always these columns, very tight columns. So this is one of our crowns on top, where we add all the water and all these things on top, because this time so we can do it, it's still not as heavy as flour. This is on top of fitness and spa. This is the fitness and spa from the outside, with the Café Trieste on the first and ground floor. Up there will be tango dancing every night. This is clear. So this is this steel frame building, also very beautiful, all different floors. This is on the top floor. These are all the existing things we try to keep, of course, many old things there. Now I can see the boring part is over and you like to look at these images. Huh? Okay. This is also old stuff. I wouldn't even know what they used this for. This is huge trumpets of tin. From the outside, same building, House of Design. Our workshop building, which is the communal building. Top floor, you can show movies. Ateliers, this is the old structure. Lobby entrance, except one or two windows, new, everything existing. Lawyer, dentist, architect, graphic designer, I don't know. Oh, okay, for an architect it's not messy enough. Huh? Again, you think if you just put in people and a little bit of furniture, and then you have this. If we, of course, this is all for free at the moment. This is a model. As architects, we know to get at this point that all of these things are exposed there. And the ceilings are not covered with all the kind of fire protection panels and installation panels, that we can really keep this so basic as I show it. This is the other 7 years of work here. This is clear. But this is where we want to go. This is our deli and the food market and the passage, looking over to the Aspen Square. Yeah. Okay, we do these images to give some hope to possible buyers or renters, and also to give some hope to us that we think this could be beautiful to do. House of Design, seen at night from the outside. Okay, the last images. This would be the most beautiful thing if the project would be able to generate addresses and distinct spaces. So this is from Anchor Park, back closer, one of our new bridges there. This is the passage. You see, it's at the moment we don't show you the facades. It's because we haven't done them yet. We only started to do them. We want to do for each building, we want to do a specific facade. Not commercial facades, of course, over the whole complex, but really specific high-class facades for each building, appropriate to its use. So this, needless to say, is Mei-Fabriek Harbor. This is Aspen Square, a new bridge there, the other bridge over there. This is Mei-Fabriek Square, Mailmagazin. This is where you saw these people swimming, that's up there. This here is the Mei-Fabriek Hotel, where you see you can see how, yeah, okay, that's another discussion. They didn't put the images of the hotel rooms here, too bad, huh? Okay, I told them to do that. Café Trieste again. This is from Katoon Park side, approaching the Mei-Fabriek complex. Now I think these are the images I really like. This is for some time, the first time we really managed to make a model where I start to really feel the sense of place. Huh? So this is a new building in Aspen Square to the side to the other buildings. And these are these atelier spaces on the ground floor. And here I think this is only a model, but I think this gives me a lot of hope for this building. That we might be able to make a nice address on this side. Let me see what else we have here. Yeah, same thing. So the images you saw before, many of them, I think, you were not in the space, and now you're in the space. This is so difficult to make. So I was so happy to see that last week when they came up with this, that now we're there. We're learning to really do something which starts to be that you feel you're there. This is the other building on Aspen Square, the long one. These are family buildings, both of them. This is an existing bridge here. And this model here is a sketch model. You know, this is another fight I had in my office. The young people, they're so good at the computers, so they always sit in these computers. And they also, maybe you do this too, they also sketch with the computer. So they design with the computer. And then I said, please, let's sketch with models. And this is now sketching with models. We have an idea of these apartments on Aspen Square on this side, creating this long passage here. And I like this very much because it's very, yeah, you can see why. These are the people who helped me to put this together. Huh? Anna from London. This Annika from Düsseldorf. And this Dan, a real Dutch guy. And this is Gael from Paris. Dutch guy again, Gert-Jan. Giacomo, Italian. Giovanni, Sicilia. Kevin, Massachusetts. Nikolai, he's from southern Germany. Philippe, Swiss guy. Oh, she left me. She is not in the office anymore. But this is Sarah from Berlin. Oh, and she also my tennis partner. Susie from London. She was crying a little when she went home a couple of weeks ago. Thank you.